Hi everyone, it's Ryan here, aka the Forex Amateur. Welcome to the Amateur Effect Weekly Outlook. What I'm going to be going through today is just a highlight of my weekly outlook on the Volatility 75 and the the Volatility 75 and the Volatility 25 synthetic indices. Right? If you do not trade synthetic indices, these are simply offered by a broker called binary.com or deriv.com. You can find the link to sign up at the bottom of this video or in the video description. Feel free to follow that link, have a look at it, and sign up. So just a little bit about synthetic indices. Synthetic indices function completely decentralized from any central banks or stuff like that, right? These function under the core principles of basically price action, order flow, market structure, and stuff like that. So this is one of the those very creative things that were created. I'm not quite sure in terms of the history of it and stuff like that, because I haven't really delved into that side of it, right? But the reason why I enjoy trading this market is because this market is extremely volatile, right? Being an impatient person, I really struggle with trading forex currencies, commodities, stocks, and stuff like that, purely because they're not liquid enough for me, right? My patience wears really thin, so I want to get back, I want to get into the market and get out of the market as fast as possible, also taking as many puts as possible, right? Now, the thing with the Volatility 75 synthetic is this this chart or this instrument moves an average of about 2,000 to 6,000 pips on a daily basis, right? So literally you're able to jump into this market over the space of an hour or two. You're able to pull out as much as 1,000 pips in the space of an hour or two, right? So that's one of the reasons why I chose to trade this market when I did stumble across it, right? So without further ado, I'm just going to jump straight into it. And if you guys have any questions, just drop a question on the video, drop a question in the comments below, or simply drop us, drop me a DM on Insta. My handle's at the Forex Amateur, the underscore Forex underscore amateur. And I'll be more than happy to go through those with you. You can also check out on my bio on Instagram. You'd be able to join on our trial group where you'll be able to trial our services for as much as 30 days prior to committing to anything, right? So our services range from one-on-one private lessons all the way up to, I don't like the word signals, but we'll call it signals for the purpose of this video. We do challenges, account build challenges and stuff like that. So it's really creative, really good services. And we also try to, do things outside of the normal way that most of the guys are doing it in most of their trading communities. So feel free to check us out, guys. Look forward to hearing from you. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So over here, we've got the Volatility 75 in indice or index, if you want to call it that, right? I'm not going to go, generally my analysis starts from the monthly time frame, weekly, daily, and then that basically sets my bias for the week, month, or whatever be the case. And then I generally drop down to the 4-hour or 1-hour chart just to look for my confirmations in terms of my weekly bias or whatever be the case. And then I drop down to my 15-minute, 5-minute chart in order to find my price action confirmations and jump in on my trades, right? So this is the daily chart that we've got over here. As you can see on this chart, we've identified a downtrend. This is a weekly downtrend, right? You can see we've got 1, 2, 3 touches on this weekly downtrend. And then we've got a breakout to the upside, and we've got a retest and a push up at the moment. Now, we've got a bearish candle at the moment, which hasn't really closed yet. So I'm expecting this candle to close bearish in and around this area, and we'll then get another push to the upside. So overall, my bias on this chart at the moment is bullish, and that is purely due to the break to the upside over here. The break of structure. So we've broken this major lower high down here, and we've now formed a higher high and a higher low on this chart. So my current bias on this chart would be bullish, right? Over here, we've got our zones. So you can see I've highlighted a few zones over here. What I'll be more or less expecting to see happen, as you can see, we've already got a bounce into the zone. So price pushed up and then pull back and bounced into the zone. So I'll be expecting to see this price perhaps reject more or less around this area here before it pulls back down and pushes up again. So should price, let me just remove this off the chart. So should price touch this zone over here on the top, I'll be looking to take a sell all the way back down to this zone at the bottom. Should price touch this zone at the bottom first over here, then I'll simply be looking to take a buy from this zone all the way back up into that zone there, and perhaps expecting a break to the upside of this zone, right? So that is more or less what I'm looking at on the daily time frame. But overall, just to basically summarize it for you, on the daily time frame, we're on bullish bias at the moment. We are currently holding a lot of buy positions on this chart. So overall, we're looking to swing these buy entries all the way to the top, perhaps a break of structure over here. But obviously, we will be scaling in on positions as market structure does play out, as it does touch into my institutional levels, which is basically these little zones that I've highlighted over here. So dropping down to the 4-hour chart, as you can see on the 4-hour chart, I've more or less identified a little bit of structure that's happening over here. It's nothing very traditional. I'm pretty sure you guys aren't familiar with this. So it's nothing traditional. All I'm simply highlighting here is areas of sensitivity where price has come and reacted to those areas. So when you see trend lines on my charts, it's not the traditional use of trend lines. It's simply highlighting areas of sensitivity, highlighting the direction, whether we're bullish or bearish and stuff like that, not really for trading specific purposes, right? On this chart, as you can see, we've also got our institutional zones highlighted on this chart. We've got a nice bounce off of this zone here after price pushed to the upside. So I'll be expecting to see price reach into this area here before I start to look for sells again to catch that retracement to the downside and look for more buys to take this chart, this market back to the upside. But confirming our weekly bias, our daily bias, as you can see, price is currently bullish. Over the next couple of hours, I'll be looking to see price reach in and around this area here, where I'll be looking to take another buy position from around this area back to the upside on the 4-hour chart. Obviously, this wouldn't be a 4-hour entry, so I'll be looking to drop down to around the 15-minute chart or the 5-minute chart, and I'll be looking to catch my entries on those charts. Dropping down to the 1-hour just so that you could see very clearly. As you see on here, we've got our risk reward tool highlighted. This was basically highlighted off the 4-hour chart. And as you can see on this chart as well, it's more or less the same thing that I'm looking to do. I'm looking to see price pull down into this level down here, which is more or less my institutional buy zone here, but I'll be looking to see a lower time frame push into this area to activate any of my buys. Obviously, this would be market execution orders. I don't really trade pending orders. But you can feel free to do so. The only reason I don't trade pending orders is purely because of manipulations and stop loss hands and stuff like that. So all I look to do is I look to see price hitting into my levels, specific prices that I've highlighted, and then I look to take those entries purely based off the same analysis that I'm sharing with you guys now. So we're going to move away from VIX 75. We're going to go to VIX 25 or Volatility 25. Which is one of the other synthetics. Obviously, on this chart, I really am not trading this at the moment. Towards the beginning or the earlier parts of this year, I did trade this, and this is one of the, it moves very well, right? In the sense that it gives good moves when it does. The only thing I do not like about this chart is that it consolidates very often. So you get a nice move, and then you get a consolidation. You get a nice move, and then you get a consolidation. Now, I'm looking to swing positions on these instruments, so consolidations is not really something I want to see a lot of. So I've elected to not trade this at the moment, but feel free to trade it. And for these purposes, I'm just going to share my analysis with you. So this is the daily chart on Volatility 25. As you can see here, I've highlighted my institutional buy and sell zones. And these zones was purely highlighted after the move of the bottom here to the upside here, right? As you can see, price pulled back into my buy zone here, pulled back into the buy zone again, and it's currently sitting on my institutional sell zone. This does not mean, however, that it is ready to sell at the moment. What I'd more than likely see happening on this chart is, sorry about that. So what we'll more than likely be seeing on this chart is price pushing down to in and around this area before it pulls back and violates this zone to the upside, before we see an actual push to the downside all the way back into this area down here, perhaps a violation to the downside before we see it pull back, right? Remember, this is a daily chart, so you need to be very careful when you trade a daily analysis. You need to ensure that you understand your time frame correlations, because if not, then you'd find yourself sitting in a position at the wrong time when it could have been a winning position, but purely because you jumped in too early or too late, you'll find yourself in drawdown or in a losing position, right? Looking at this, we've got our 4-hour chart here. Same thing, we've got our zones highlighted. We've got our daily trend line that highlights the bullish momentum. You'll see a false breakout and then a break back in here, which is something that you'll see happen very often, which is one of the reasons that I do not trade trend lines, right? On this chart, we see price pushing to the upside, and as explained, you can see over here, let me just zoom in so you guys can see the actual candlesticks. You can see over here, price already reacted from this level. So I'll be looking to see in and around this area to see another burst to the upside to violate this previous high over here, before we look for that daily sell that I've highlighted on the daily time frame, which should come in more or less from my H4 sell zone here at the top. Let me just pull it down from my H4 sell zone here at the top, right? So I'll be expecting to see price come into this area perhaps during the course of tomorrow or during the course of Tuesday. So just keep an eye on this analysis, guys. Very, 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 very clean analysis. And I'll be expecting to see it play out very well as well. Looking at our H1 chart, we've got price pushing here to the upside. We've got a bit of a corrective structure here. Again, I do not trade corrective structures. I do not trade all of those things. I simply trade my institutional buy and sell zones. I do not trade support and resistance and so forth. If you do, however, those are very good things to trade. It's just I've seen it not work out more times than I've seen it work out, right? So looking at this, we've got our corrective structure here. And as you guys know, if you're familiar with institutional order flow, then you know that the market moves in 2 phases, which is your impulse phase and your corrective phase. So as you can see on this chart, we've got a very clean impulse phase that moved to the upside from here. We've got price currently trapped in a corrective phase at the moment. So we'll be looking to see perhaps price pull back down on this H1 chart into in and around these areas here to give us a false breakout to the downside, which will basically trap the sellers. And then we'll see this market burst back into the upside again before we see the actual sell coming in, which is what I've highlighted on the daily time frame and your H4 time frame. On here, I haven't really highlighted any zones yet. And the reason for that is because this chart is a bit too choppy, a bit too messy at the moment, as explained. You can see a lot of consolidation happening on this chart, so I haven't really highlighted any specific zones that we'll be looking at. But more or less at the moment, we'll be seeing a short buy to the upside to in and around this area here before we see this market crash to the downside. So I'll be expecting to see perhaps buys to around this area over here, right? Before I'll be expecting to see sells back down to around, say around this area down here, right? And that will simply trap all the sellers. And from around this area here, we'll be looking to see this price push back up. And then we'll be looking to take those sells off the upside, which is where I've basically highlighted again on the daily and the H4 time frame. So that's it from my side, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Feel free to join in on our weekly outlooks as of next week. I do post those links as well as those updates on our amateur trial group, so feel free to join in at any point. Thank you so much for your time, guys. Enjoy the rest of the week and have a very profitable week.